Hello everyone, my name is Princess Okeke. My topic is the link between environmental factors and the development of type 2 diabetes. Um, my mentor is Natalie D. I chose this topic because one of my siblings have contracted the disease before and she told me her experience, and that's encouraged me to research on this project. I'm currently presenting from Michigan, so it's nice to meet you all. Now, what should be understood about type 2 diabetes? Type 2 diabetes is a chronic medical condition where the body has high blood sugar, insulin resistance, and relative lack of insulin. This means that the body does not produce enough insulin to break down sugar, or the body cannot effectively use the insulin that it has to break down the blood sugar. Type 2 diabetes is usually caused by noticeable lack of physical activity, obesity, and consumption of foods high in sugar and fat. People who have type 2 diabetes have a greater risk of contracting heart disease, stroke, and kidney failure. This is one of the reasons why it is a health concern. It is prevalent amongst people who are older than 45 years, though young people and children can have the disease. Now, why do we care about it? As many as 220,000 young people may have type 2 diabetes in 2060. 1 in 10 of Americans actually have diabetes, and 90 to 95% of those cases are type 2 diabetes. And between 1998 and 2018, the prevalence of male obesity rose from 3.1% to 6.0%, and that of female obesity rose from 6.2% to 11.5%. Now, in this research project, there are certain risk factors that are already acknowledged that increase a person's chance of contracting type 2 diabetes. These are obesity, lack of physical activity, and consumption of foods high in sugar and fat. However, what is being analyzed is the environmental factors that influence these risk factors, or in other words, the environmental factors that increase these risk factors listed that would then cause type 2 diabetes. Now, the non-genetic risk factors of type 2 diabetes considered in this project are physical inactivity. This is an extended period of lack of bodily movement requiring energy expenditure. Obesity, this can occur when a person consumes too much food but exercises too little. The combination of those two causes it such that when a person consumes much food but exercises too little or has physical inactivity, the excess energy that they are not expending is stored as body fat, which then can lead to high blood sugar, which then leads to type 2 diabetes. The dietary structures, these are the nutritional value of the diet consumed impacts the health of the individual. It is shown that the Mediterranean diet actually helps to decrease the chance of having type 2 diabetes in contrast to the Western diet. You could say that the Mediterranean diet is characterized by high intake of legumes, vegetables, fruits, nuts, and whole grains, with low intakes of seafood, poultry, and dairy. Access to nutritional food. People who People who live in poorer areas typically have access to foods that are higher in fat, like your typical McDonald's. But this then causes this lack of nutritional food then increases their risk of having type 2 diabetes. Now, the environmental factors considered are split into the physical and the social. Now, the factors in the environmental in the physical environment are walkability, green space, transportation, safety, presence of the urban sprawl, population density, and air pollution. Now, walkability is the ability for residents to access amenities and services by foot within an area. Its research shows that the more walkable an area is, the less the chance of type 2 diabetes. This is because when when in residential areas there are walkable areas, more people will walk. Walking is a physical activity, and we have seen that more physical activity reduces the chance of having type 2 diabetes. In an urban area, green space is land set apart for the growth of natural features such as grass, vegetation, etc., for the purpose of recreation or aesthetic satisfaction. Now, one of the things about green space is the beauty. This encourages people to go outdoors more, and to when they are able to visit these places such as parks, they will be able to engage in the physical activity of their liking. And with this increase of physical activity, there's less chance of having type 2 diabetes because they're expending enough energy. Transportation is the movement of people or goods from one place to another. In this discussion, we are considering two types of transportation: active travel and motorized travel. In active travel, the person is moving from place to place by physical exertion. This includes things such as walking or cycling, where the person is exerting energy. This versus motorized transports where you use trains, buses, cars, or airplanes, meaning that you do not exert any energy. This active travel would lead to reduced incidence of type 2 diabetes because it increases physical activity, which helps the person against type 2 diabetes. The next are safety, urban sprawl, and population density. Safety can be considered as a condition or state where there is no threat or presence of harm or danger to be experienced. In this research, there were two things that I considered is, and those were the person's perceived lack of safety and actual objective safety. In places where there were worse housing conditions or poorer living conditions, people considered where they were staying less safe. Now, when the person feels as though the environment is not safe, they are more likely to stay at home and isolate themselves and not engage in physical activity, which reduces their chance of diabetes. Moreover, in places that would be objectively unsafe, people would stay in their homes because they were scared of going out, and because they were not engaging in outdoor activities and physical activities, their chances of contracting diabetes would increase. Moreover, we have the urban sprawl, which is characterized as the increased extension of the geographical expanses of an urban environment, often without restriction. One of the problems of the urban sprawl is that because it is far from the city, people have to rely on long commute to get to their work areas. So they are going to depend on motorized travel, where they use cars to get to their workplaces. This means that they are spending less time engaging in physical activity, which then increases their chance of diabetes. Moreover, we have population density, which is the measured amount of people living per unit of land area. Research shows that there is an inverse relationship between population density and type 2 diabetes. Places with lower population density, which are usually the places that are in urban sprawl or the suburban areas, again engage in long commutes, which reduces their physical activity and then increases their chance of type 2 diabetes. Lastly, air pollution. Studies have air pollution constitutes pollution in the immediate surroundings of an individual that could be traffic related and include levels of particle concentration in the air. Studies have found a strong association between particulate matter with a diameter of 10 microns and insulin resistance. Previous findings also observe an increase in insulin resistance in the presence of an increase in nitrogen dioxide in the air. Increase in nitrogen dioxide in the air would constitute air pollution. Now we move on to the social environment. The social environment is characterized by the community, culture, norms, and institutions an individual frequently interacts with. This can be your family, your school, the churches that you attend, or political and economic frameworks. The risk of type 2 diabetes is then influenced by the presence of social isolation and socio-economic status. Now, we would say that social isolation is an individual's lack of social relationships or interaction with members of their surrounding societal space. Now, how does social isolation increase um, the risk of type 2 diabetes? It does because with social isolation, it means that the person is lonely. When a person is lonely, it means that they are not interacting with people, so they are more prone to stay at home and live a sedentary lifestyle. They are not engaging in outdoor activities with their friends. This leads to reduced physical activity, which has been shown to increase the risk of type 2 diabetes. Moreover, we must also consider socioeconomic status. This is a measure of a person's relative position in the societal class hierarchy that takes into account their level of income, occupation, the prestige of their education, and their quality of living. Now, why socioeconomic status is important is because this affects the resources that people have access to. People with lower socioeconomic status who have less access to nutritional food as they are staying in places that have low quality of living and they don't have enough money to spend on actual nutritional food. We have seen that ultra processed food is much cheaper than foods that are less processed. They also won't have as good of an access to health care, and their quality of living would also reduce, which would affect their feelings of safety. They are also more prone to actually live in less safer areas than richer people. Now, this leads to the end of my presentation. What I would conclude with is that there were disparities in data as different papers presented different arguments for the topics in this paper. A considerable amount of data stems from surveys, which would be unreliable because people's responses are affected by different factors that are not considered. There was error and bias, and type 2 diabetes is shown to be more prevalent among certain racial groups compared to others, which was not taken into account in this project. Going forward, I expect more research in this area, and I believe that type 2 diabetes will be prevented when people have sufficient access to nutritional food, public resources, and have the ability to freely exercise more in places that have more green space and walkable environments. Thank you.